Greetings, we are anonymous. There is something at work that threatens the very existence of life as we know it, and you might not know. For the past 40 years we have been accustomed to believing what's going on above us is normal. It is anything but. We are all being sprayed with toxic chemicals and biological weapons. This is called geoengineering or chemtrails. You have been told that this is a natural occurring phenomenon and that you have nothing to worry about. What they are trying to make you believe is that all this aerial spraying is contrails from jet engines.
See him spraying that chemtrail?
Yep. Good thing we're above it.
I know.
Otherwise we'd be dead right now.
Contrails are ice crystals that form at the end of a plane, very different from the chemtrails you are seeing in the sky. Contrail occur in cold air, about -30, takes a high altitude about 30,000 plus feet. There's carbon dioxide and water vapor in the exhaust and that turns to ice crystals. That's what you see the white stream behind the aircraft. Those ice crystals warm up, dissolve in the white cloud and go away. This process happens in less than a minute. It is impossible for ice to just hang like this in our atmosphere for hours on end, making the skies hazy after a while. Look at these flight paths. How is this a charter flight? Did the pilot leave his phone at the airport? Turned around to get it? Oh, never mind, found it. Turned back. All commercial airlines and military tanker aircrafts have high bypass turbofan jet engines, basically jet-powered fans. 85% of this air is not combusted. This engine by design is almost incapable of making a condensation trail unless under the most extreme circumstances. Total lack of humidity at higher altitudes are conditions where you just can't get condensation trails. It is extremely very rare. If you walk down a street on a cold day and you breathe condensation, do you turn around and see a kilometer-long cloud behind you? Look at the nozzles near the jet engine. You can see it's modified. Check drawings, they are not plans for the original design. This is geoengineering or chemtrails. It is sprayed on us all around the planet without consent or our knowledge. Chemtrails have been spotted all around the world. In America, Europe, New Zealand, Canada, South America, Russia, Asia and Australia. Chemtrails are full of toxic metal substances: aluminum, aluminum oxide, barium, strontium, lead, polymer nanofibers, sulfurs, nano-aluminum-coated fiberglass chaff, lithium, zinc, nickel, cadmium, uranium, chromium, titanium, metallic salts, oxides, and on top of that it has also been found containing non-metal substances, like yellow fungus, mold spores, E. coli, arsenic, desecrated blood, that's right, blood cells, fluoride, infectious pathogens, sedatives, virally mutated fungi, exotic strains of bacteria, parasitic nematode eggs, ethylene bromide, nanoparticulates, crystalline substances, ethylene dibromide. 49 substances have been found. HAARP. HAARP has the ability to control the weather. Artificial disbursements. HAARP high pressure frequency domes. The Club of Rhode. Page 75 of their 1990 publication entitled The First Global Revolution, the organization outlined how they would manufacture ecological scares in order to manipulate the public into accepting the imposition of a dictatorial world government run by them. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention. The real enemy, then, as humanity itself. Earthquakes, volcanoes remotely. One way is to use electromagnetic waves. William S. Cohen 1997-1975 saying to create hurricanes, and Sear Hurricanes 1978 enormous modifics von 3D scalar weaponry. There's a model out there called the variable terrestrial radio parabolic equation model. This was the embryo to a lot of experiments. The Chinese artificially induced a snowstorm. They were proud, then they did $1 billion damage to Beijing, then they shut up real quick. Heavy wet snow, new term, it's not natural. Weather modification. HAARP can also create floods, storms, droughts, big hailstorms, hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes and more. This is HAARP stopping the transmit hours after the earthquake in Fukushima. There's HAARP stations all over the world. They beam into the ionosphere up to 3 billion watts of radio and radiant heat. You can bet on the weather now. Chemtrails are highly toxic metals that are harmful to all life. You have been brainwashed into thinking this is normal. Your children are being brainwashed in school with lies and propaganda before they are old enough to know the difference on their own. Geoengineering in kids' films. This is us being conditioned that it's normal to take something as wonderful as the young human mind and completely distort it. This is as low as it gets for society. Your children are the target for big corporations to profit on at any cost. Completely blinded to you. If you are not outraged if this doesn't give you that burning feeling inside. This NASA/State Department funded school book for children in kindergarten through 4th grade admits persistent chemtrails from particles in aircraft exhaust, the combustion products of distilled hydrocarbons, such as jet fuel, kerosene, are carbon dioxide and H2O, neither of which form condensation nuclei for water to condense to. What are these particles, NASA? Of course, they're the nanoparticulate. Geoengineer. They tell you it doesn't exist, then they tell your children it does. They will admit it very slowly and say it's your fault, and we're doing this for your own good.
Particles that could be put in the sky to try to reflect sunlight, and somebody said, so there's that one of the forms might be some kind of carbon in the form of a diamond, but a certain point, I don't know what is 0.1 micron, little tiny things, and people think, okay, people will never put up with this, but if the American population put up with kidnapping and torture through the extraordinary rendition program, with surveillance of all our telecommunication and our movement, and when it was announced post facto, most Americans were fine with it. And I think if a political leader announced, oh, we started putting diamonds in the sky to protect you. I think if they put up with kidnapping and torture, they'll likely put up with diamonds in the sky. So I think this idea that people are not going to accept these things is maybe overly optimistic.
As soon as you made people feel guilty how easy it is to control them. American Idol X Factor doesn't matter. How can Australia have a show called Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader and a Prime Minister that isn't? He is just a puppet. His job is to take the focus so you don't notice who's pulling the strings. For example, did you know Perth as well as other cities are drinking recycled water? Aluminum. The amount of aluminum in the soil has doubled in the last 10 years in California. Rain test. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally it should be zero or non-detectable. 61,000 parts per billion in the snow of Mount Shasta. 4 times the amount that's found in the soil. This is not a natural phenomenon. Aluminum is 1/8 of the Earth's crust, 3rd most abundant element. Aluminum doesn't exist in the environment in free form. It has always bonded to other elements. It doesn't blow around unless it's been mined and refined and sprayed in the air. In the last 10 years, respiratory disease in the US has moved from 8th to 3rd highest cause of death. Asthma rates have more than doubled in the Western world, and Alzheimer's disease, a condition that is caused by aluminum poisoning, has also skyrocketed. Remember, they wanted to take aluminum out of deodorant because it's toxic. Barium, and people test on blood work. Worse than shown. With this blood test, this woman has barium 130 to 140, should be 2 to 10. This is an indication of what's free to your bloodstream at the time of the test. It's not showing what your body's taken in your tissues and what your organs have taken in. The actual amount would be a lot higher. Aluminum goes straight to your tissue and brain. Barium circulates in the blood. Nano-size aluminum is more toxic than regular forms of aluminum. It has an effect with barium which is synergistic, meaning if you have a chemical that's a 2+ toxicity and a chemical that is 3+ toxicity, instead of a 5+ toxicity you get 25+ toxicity. That's what synergy is. It's an incredible magnification when they're added together. Fluoride has a high synergistic effect with aluminum, making it many times more toxic. 1 in 3 adults dies with Alzheimer's or dementia. Autism rates were 1 in 5,000, now they are 1 in 48. That's a 10,000% increase. This should be front page news. Geoengineering. This has been happening since the late 40s. See, it's building up in our bodies and shredding our immune systems. It is now common for people to have a 3-week cold, headaches, extended colds, asthma, sinuses, eye irritations, muscle weakness, autoimmune disease, short-term memory loss, increased blood pressure and stomach irritation. Heavy metals acting as endocrine disruptors, equates to our reproductive abilities, hormonal production and bodily systems. The ability for man to reproduce is drastically reduced. KC-135, KC-130, KC-10, Boeing 747 commercial, military and even propeller planes have been used for geoengineering. The Evergreen is a CIA front. They had an open day showing off their aircraft and ability to water dump on wildfires. This is a cover story. Qantas flights QF-63 have been noted chemtrail sprayers.
Qantas.
Also white unmarked planes.
Qantas?
Las Vegas reporter Marcus Dalton writes that an archaeologist working throughout Nevada began noticing all white unmarked aircraft preparing for takeoff at Nellis Air Force Base, and at the Mancomb complex near Tonopah in the late 90s. It was these unmarked planes that were constantly laying down the crisscrossing X patterns of lingering chemical spray trails over southern Nevada, the archaeologist stated, when he asked the military escort accompanying his civilian research team into sensitive areas around Nellis about the planes. He was strongly advised, "You didn't see anything." A high-placed military insider claims that bacteria and viruses are freeze-dried and placed on fine filaments for release. The metals released along with the diseases heat up from the sun, creating a perfect environment for the bacteria and viruses to thrive in the air supply. Chemtrails contain nanotechnological weapons.
Good afternoon, EPA. How may I help you?
Yes, ma'am. The reason I'm calling, I have a few questions I was wondering if you could help me with.
What kind of questions, ma'am?
What I'm concerned about is what they're spraying on us with these chemtrails on almost a daily basis.
Ma'am, that's not an EPA issue there. That is on the investigation.
Yeah, well, there's something like over 50 chemicals, including dead viruses, blood, lead, chromium, strontium, barium, aluminum, all kind of stuff. That's the reason I figured, FDA would have their hands in this. But I guess I was wrong.
We're not the ones it's being researched by the solar experts and the geoengineers, climate researchers.
Well, then what is your job there? What is the EPA doing then? What are they doing? What are they there for?
Ma'am, what do you mean, what are we here for? Chemtrail and spraying is not an EPA issue. We're not the ones they don't even know the answers to this.
Okay.
That's why they're researching it.
Okay.
And it's not being researched by EPA. It's being researched by climate researchers, solar experts, geoengineers.
Okay.
And it is actually doing harm to to killing all the vegetation. The trees are dying and ozone.
Yeah, not to mention what it's doing to humans and animals because we're all sick.
Yeah. It's doing some harm, but they don't have any answers. They have, like I say, the document.
Department of Defense U.S. Air Force Academy invented the word chemtrails in 1990, not conspiracy theories. In a Space Preservation Act, H.R. 2977, Dennis Kucinich, member of the U.S. House of Representatives, proposed a bill to ban space-based weapons, stating the term weapon as a device capable of damaging or destroying an object in outer space, in the atmosphere or on Earth, firing one or more projectiles, detonating explosive devices, directing a source of energy including molecular or atomic energy, subatomic particle beams, electromagnetic radiation, plasma, or extremely low frequency, ELF, or ultra low frequency, DULF, energy radiation, inflicting death or injury on, or damaging or destroying a person or the biological life, bodily health, mental health, or physical and economic well-being of a person, through the use of land-based, sea-based, or space-based systems using radiation, electromagnetic, psychotronic, sonic, laser, or other energies directed at individual persons or targeted populations for the purpose of information war, mood management, or mind control of such persons or populations, or by expelling chemical or biological agents in the vicinity of a person. Such terms include exotic weapons systems, and then on line 15 under exotic weapons you have chemtrails. I thought only conspiracy theories used that term. Explain line 21. Strategic, theater, tactical, or extraterrestrial weapons. Page 23. Chemical, biological, environmental, climate, or tectonic weapons. Can you think of a weapon capable of that? HARP. Very interesting that a U.S. House of Representatives put forward a bill listing things you are told doesn't exist. Agenda item number 16, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fairfax to declare the town of Fairfax a chemtrail-free zone. 1940 to 1979, the UK Ministry of Defence conducts open-air tests using disease-producing bacteria and viruses, many involved releasing potentially dangerous chemicals and microorganisms over vast swaths of the population without the public being told. In 1950s to 1960s, the CIA and British military study LSD as a potential weapon for use by intelligence services. Human subjects, both civilian and military, are used with and without their knowledge. Las Vegas attributes illness to geoengineering, weather as a forced manipulator. Oming Weather 2025, U.S. Air Force. A Department of Energy spent $5 billion a year on geoengineering. You are paying for this. We have high government officials talking about chemtrails. We have military personnel and pilots.
Now, and I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal. It's got to be some outside influence doing that. Thank you.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real.
Trails are a well-known example of that. These are not smoke trails. These are clouds which are seeded by jets dumping aerosols into the upper atmosphere.
You might ask, why would they do this to themselves? 2,000 nuclear bombs have been detonated on this planet. We are all infected. We all have strontium-90 in our bones. This is the collapse of the planet.
Out there than that. This is terrible, and you are all being affected by this. You better wake up, look up, and realize what's being dumped upon us. Do your research and turn off the TVs. All of you. This is for real. Our own government, the United Nations, is making us sick, and you better wake up.
Whale researchers find jaw-dropping levels of pollution in tissue tests worldwide. Some of the toxins found were aluminum, chromium, lead, cadmium, and titanium, all key chemtrail ingredients. Plankton have a 50% decline. Plankton make up 50 to 60% of the world's oxygen supply. Solar flare could unleash nuclear holocaust across Earth. A solar flare can knock out the power grid and all backup generators. The plants can't cool themselves, they go into meltdown. The weaker our ozone layer gets, the more we open ourselves to a solar flare. There's holes in the ozone layer. UV levels are extremely higher than what we're being told. We are told 95% is UVA, at least 60% is UVB. That's a 1,200% increase. UVC used to stop 100,000 feet in the atmosphere. It is the strongest and most deadly of solar rays. The ozone layer used to stop this from reaching the Earth. No bees means no food. This is happening right now. Einstein said if the bees disappeared off the face of the Earth, man would only have 4 years left to live. Bees are dying everywhere, and not just because of all the space being sprayed by farmers. They are dying thousands of kilometers from farms.
Cobweb-like aerosol, wispy clouds. People mistake this for some sort of natural cloud. They're absolutely not. So we live under a toxic canopy. Everything that they spray in the atmosphere comes down. These trees that we see the tops of here are all dying. This plant is horrifically affected from the excessive UV, from the bioavailable metals in the rain, which kill soil microbes, has an effect on the root systems. This is a main source of food for forest animals. These flowers produce berries. Turkeys, bear, and many other species rely on this as a food source. They have no food. When this is the most a plant can produce, a couple small pods of flowers, there's nothing for the animals to eat. This is happening throughout the forest, steep decline, even with normally very hardy specimens like this manzanita.
Methane is 100 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. There's enough methane in the Arctic Ocean to kill all life on Earth. There is 1 million square miles freely venting methane in the Arctic Sea. 30+ methane blowout holes have been spotted. Change in Earth's total heat content. The oceans are warming extremely rapidly. Our climate has accumulated 2,260,618,472 Hiroshima atomic bombs of heat since 1998. This is where we're heading.
Try to deceive and confuse the population as to what's going on in the skies above their heads continues, and the whole of academia is helping to hide what can only be described as crimes against humanity, crimes against nature, not just ecocide or genocide, but omnicide, the destruction of all life on Earth. And that's literally what's happening from these programs, whatever the intent.
As climate intervention, I thought was not helpful. Okay, but I think it's much more clear to say that solar geoengineering or albedo modification, as it's called in this report, or SRM as it's called in this meeting, is pretty clearly intervening in the climate system.
Earth. Define Earth.
Geoengineer Ken Caldeira, when he worked at a government weapons lab, he discussed adding pathogens to the clouds to wage chemical and germ warfare on civilian populations. Noted climate scientist Ken Caldeira of the Carnegie Institute for Science at Stanford has finally popped the question. In an article entitled One Known Way to Cool the Earth, on the February 16, 2015 USA Today opinion page, Caldeira writes, "There is basically only one way known to cool the Earth rapidly." He explains the method is to reflect more of the sun's warming rays back to space. What will it take to do this? According to Caldeira, only a small fleet of airplanes could do what large volcanoes do, create a layer of small particles hiding the atmosphere that scatters incoming sunlight back to space. Cooling the Earth this way could be fast, cheap and easy.
Greetings, I am Francis Wayne Mangels. I live in Mount Shasta. Qualifications first and then a little bit. Bachelor of Science with Honors, International School of Forestry at Missoula. Master of Science Zoology, Montana State University. Psi Sigma Pi Scholarship in Community Service. California Community Colleges credential. How about that? Mensa International. And the next step that's a magnitude above that, Intertel. God dang. Yeah, I'm 10 times as good as a Mensa. How about that? But the thing I want to tell you about is I'd like you to, I've got data about biology. I've got some observations here about stuff we've actually seen and have proven. There's another website out there by John White where I debunked the debunkers, the people who told me it was BS. But there's about 90 points on here that the debunkers haven't been able to touch for about 6 or 7 years. There is no filter that we know of that's going to take out a particle that's 1/1000th of a meter in size. So you're stuck with breathing it. This stuff shows up in the water. We have a rain sample right in front of me right here. No, you can't filter it out of water either. There's no way to get 1/1000th of a meter particle out of there. By the way, smoke, cigarette smoke is 1/1,000,000th of a meter, and we're dealing with something that's 1,000 times smaller than a particle of tobacco smoke.
Supporter of geoengineering, John P. Holdren, co-authored a book called Eco-Science for a Planetary Regime. His Obama's key science advisor wants to enforce totalitarian population control measures, forced abortion, infanticide and mandatory sterilization. He is all for geoengineering even though it apparently doesn't exist. Holdren co-authored in 1977 saying, "Women could be forced to abort their pregnancies, whether they wanted to or not. The population at large could be sterilized by infertility drugs intentionally put into the nation's drinking water or in food. Single mothers and teen mothers should have their babies seized from them against their will and given away to other couples to raise. People who contribute to social deterioration, i.e. undesirables, can be required by law to exercise reproductive responsibility. In other words, be compelled to have abortions or be sterilized. A transnational planetary regime should assume control of the global economy and also dictate the most intimate details of Americans' lives. Using an armed international police force, biochemist H.R. Hewlett has a figure of 1 billion people on Aldrin revealed that high-level talks have already taken place to explore the possibility of geoengineering. By shooting pollution particles into the upper atmosphere to reflect the sun's rays has got to be looked at, and we don't have the luxury to take any approach off the table. 64 million people live in the UK, 70 million are projected to live in the UK by 2030. John Afon Porritt, one of Gordon Brown's leading green advisors, wants to cut the population to 30 million by that time. Morgellons is an effect chemtrails have on you. There's fibers found in chemtrail fallout. These fibers are put under a microscope and studied. You get fibers that irritates the skin. It feels very itchy. Some sufferers say they feel like little worms under their skin. Some fibers found have hooks.
Hello everyone. I just want to show you these spider webs in the snow. And these fell in the snow. Look, it's on top of the snow. Look at this crap. This wasn't here yesterday. Look at these webs in the snow, guys. So when's everybody gonna start waking up? This shit is not natural. It hasn't disintegrated at all. There's tons of them.
Bill Gates. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's heading up to about 9 billion. Now if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. There's so much metal it's changing soil pH values. The forest is dying. Monsanto is now making GMO trees/plants resistant to aluminum. Geoengineering is contaminating the soil and destroying organic farming. In Norway there's a seed bank, all the world's non-GMO seeds. Bill Gates is a major Monsanto shareholder and has invested heavily into geoengineering. Geoengineering forces GMO crops on the world. Manufactured floods and droughts damage harvests and put farmers out of business. Monsanto has the patent for GMO seeds that are drought and flood resistant, as well as resistant to the poisonous effects of aluminum, one of the key metals in chemtrails. Any farmer who refuses to grow GMO crops will not be able to guarantee a good harvest. Even worse, Monsanto want to force what are termed terminator seeds on farmers worldwide. These crops don't produce seeds, meaning the farmer has to buy new seeds from Monsanto every planting season. Zbigniew Brzezinski, former National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter and co-founder of the Trilateral Commission, with David Rockefeller, serving as director from 1973 to 1976. Dystopian visionary quotes from Brzezinski's book Between Two Ages. Written back in 1970, a system that would seriously impair the brain performance of very large populations. Page 57. In addition, future developments may well include automated or manned space warships, deep-sea installations, chemical and biological weapons, death rays, and still other forms of warfare. Even the weather may be tampered with. In addition, it may be possible, and tempting, to exploit for strategic political purposes the fruits of research on the brain and on human behavior. Gordon J. F. MacDonald, a geophysicist specializing in problems of warfare, has written that timed artificially excited electronic strokes could lead to a pattern of oscillations that produce relatively high power levels over certain regions of the Earth. In this way, one could develop a system that would seriously impair the brain performance of very large populations in selected regions over an extended period. No matter how deeply disturbing the thought of using the environment to manipulate behavior for national advantages to some, the technology permitting such use will very probably develop within the next few decades. Mind control. Morgellons disease. The Georgia Guidestones in America says maintain a population of humanity under 500 million. Still think chemtrails don't exist? Well, let's go make some.